for 2022-23, I request all the members to stand up for the ICA motto and put their right hand on their heart.
Yaesha supteshu jagrati, Yaesha supteshu jagrati, Kamam 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 Pursho nirvimana Tadeva shudram Tadeva shudradamam
Good morning, respected past convener, professional colleagues, and our today's young and dynamic speaker, C. Ankit Kabraji. Recently, 47 GST Council meeting was held on 28-29 June under the chairmanship of the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and made several recommendations to implement changes to the GST regime. To discuss these changes and their impact of the key GST amendment as per decision of 47 GST Council meeting on the business in detail, today we have CA and law graduate CA Ankit Kabraji. So before we welcome our today's speaker CA Ankit Kabraji, I request coordinator of the program and past convener CA Amish Sanghviji for a brief introduction of Ankit.
Thank you, Convener Jitendra Kothari ji, Deputy Convener CA Utkarsh ji, my friend CA Aditya Maheshwari. Wish you all the 75th Happy Independence Day. It's my pleasure to introduce today's our learned speaker, CA Ankit Kabra. CA Ankit Kabra is a fellow chartered accountant in practice. By qualification, he is a chartered accountant and hold a LLB degree as well. He has qualified as a CA in May 2012 at the age of 21 years. He has qualified a law graduate in the year 2016 from Mumbai University. Post qualification, he has a rich experience of 10 years in the field of indirect tax. He served in well-known legal firms like ITC Legal and a CA firm like BOD India, LLP, and PwC in indirect tax department. He has delivered the seminars and shared knowledge on GST in different companies as a part of corporate training for staff at the time of GST implementation. He has delivered seminars on GST at the following professional forum: WRC of ICAI, Borivali Kandivali East Study Circle, Goregaon Malad Central CPE CA Study Circle, Bandra Kurla CA Study Circle, Nagar CPE CA Study Circle, Amboli CPA CA Study Circle, etc. He had also acted as one of the panelists for the discussion on GST in the panel discussion organized by Borivali Kandivali East Study Circle. He also had a media coverage during the lockdown in Bilwara Patrika, local newspaper, for delivering webinar to a member of Lagu Udyog Bharti Association representation MSME of Rajasthan. He has been invited as a speaker in college educational institution as a part of GST workshop for students. Along with this academic career, he is also active in other cultural, sports, social activities. He had been a regular participant for 7+ years in culture program held on CA Foundation Day, which are conducted by WRC Region ICA every year. He is also socially active by being a member of Yuva Samiti of Maheshwari Pragati Mandal since a decade. With this short, brief introduction, I welcome you, sir, on Andheri Ofura CP Study Circle platform. Sir, over to you.
Yeah, thank you for the warm introduction and very good morning to everyone. It's my pleasure to be with the study circle, which I am visiting for the very first time and hopefully in future will be connected as well. So on this Sunday morning, before we begin, just I would like to wish everyone an Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, which we are celebrating on a grand level. And before we go, just let us begin with the presentation without much ado. Yeah, is my screen visible?
No.
No.
Is it visible?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Kindly share. Yeah.
Yes, now.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So at the outset, just let me brief when we were busy in our income tax season, when we were busy in July filing income tax returns. So basic idea behind designing this PPT is to update our members, our professional colleagues and brothers and sisters regarding the updates which were going on during July. So this is the need of the hour that since we have complied with our income tax return filing season, now let us get geared up and get updated with the amendments which were already updated during the season when we were busy. So moving forward, the 47th GST Council meeting was held where various decisions were taken. And at the time of designing this updates, I realized that many of them have missed such updates. And that is why I have tried to cover the various sources from where we have taken such updates. So just to brief about what are the sources where you can yourself get updated about GST, our various sources apart from our WhatsApp University and Twitter. The various sources includes circulars, which are basically clarificatory in nature, that is to explain the nature of the ambiguity which was already there due to designing of the law. Second is the source about notifications. So such notifications are basically issued under the powers of GST and Council, which is defined under the Act. So notifications can also bring changes, which could be of two types, tariff or non-tariff, that is rate or non-rate notifications. Both can be accessed on the CBIC website. Then there is something known as orders, which are issued, which cannot be issued by notification, but need an amendment of the Act. And similarly, press releases. So whenever there is a GST and Council meeting, we get a press release, which is an official statement issued to the media newspapers, giving information about whatever they want to intend to implement. So now we can understand that the various sources are available, but now we can say that it's a known fact that all these things like circulars, notification, orders and press release, these needs to be issued time and again till the law is completely settled. Since the previous law, that is the service tax, excise and VAT, took many years to settle down, we need to give at least some time to GST as well to get it settled down in meantime. So that is why we can see these updates and everything regularly. And in my view, it may continue for another 2 to 5 years. So it is better to understand from which sources to study rather than to wait any material circulating on the social media. So let us begin with the circulars. Whatever circular is issued, I have just tried to bring a snapshot and try to cover everything in detail. And if any queries, we can take it at the end so that the flow and continuity is maintained. So beginning with the first circular, I understand that many of the professional brothers and sisters are into GST compliances or so. So the thing which need to be understand is there is circular stating that you need to separately disclose certain items in your 3B return. So till now date, we were filing our 3B return only in regards to the fields which were mandatory or so. We were trying to skip those fields which are not mandatorily asked by the GST department. And that is how we were submitting our returns. So this issue which they had come across, they had also came across in February 19, that is on 18 February 19. They had reminded in circular number 89 as well to disclose separately the unregistered dealer supplies as well as the composition dealer supplies. So there is a specific table in GSTR 3B. So, and as well as in GSTR1. But since it wasn't mandatory, many compliance filers used to ignore the table and go ahead. So now government is again reminded by its circular number 170, which was issued on 6 July 22. Now circular number 170 covered other aspects as well, which needs to be understood in respect of the disclosures which we are making in our GSTR 3B or GSTR 1 returns. So one, we have understood that the unregistered supplies which we are making, we need to separately show in the table specified for the very reason. Secondly, when we are making any supplies to composition taxable person or the UIN holders, in such cases also such disclosure should be made separately in table 3.2 of GSTR 3B or respective table of GSTR 1. Also, they also intend us to remind us, because circular are generally reminders of law which is already implemented. It's just clarificatory in nature. So they try to make us a reminder stating that in your invoice also there should be a column stating a correct state name in case of place of supply. So if you are issuing invoice which does not contain a particular field of the name, state name, or the place of supply which we say, then it is not a valid invoice as per the GST rules. Another thing into effect is when you take effect in table 3.2, any amendment carried out which is in the table 9, 10, 11 of GSTR. So not only the regular supplies which you are disclosing, but also the amendments needs to be taken care in this particular table of GSTR 3B. Moving forward on the inward side. Yeah.
Ankit, sorry, if you are on the other slide, if you can just move the slide, because we are able to see only the GST updated sources.
Yeah, I have moved to the other slide. Is it not visible?
No, Ankit, sorry.
Is it visible in this mode?
Yeah, you click on that. Yeah.
So I'll go in this mode then rather than the full screen mode. So this was, I was talking about circular notification orders and press release. This was about, I was talking about the outward supplies disclosure, which we have discussed. Moving forward to the inward supplies. So now in inward supplies also, they have suggested us ways and means how we need to disclose the table. As you are rightly aware that GSTR 2B is the new thing which needs to be followed for our compliances. So अगर किसी ने GSTR 3B रिटर्न कभी भरा है, तो you might be aware कि GSTR 2B का फिगर ऑटो पॉपुलेट हो जाता है रिटर्न में. What we are doing at present, the best scenario and the simplest practice which everyone is following is books का फिगर रिप्लेस कर दो, GSTR 2B में जो आ रहा है at the end of year दिखा जाएगा. But now department has alerted us saying that we are giving you GSTR 2B for a purpose. They are saying that the disclosure needs to be changed. जो भी फिगर आपका 2B में ऑटो पॉपुलेट होके आ रहा है, आप उस फिगर को उसी तरह रखिए, उसमें से जो जो आपको नहीं चाहिए वो रिड्यूस करते जाइए and arrive at your books figure. So how does it work? There are many tables in GSTR 3B which pertains to the ITC disclosures. So table 4A, which is the total GSTR 2B figure which we are getting. कोई भी supplier आपके नाम पे credit देगा, then it will appear in your 2B. So what we need to exclude from this 2B? Only two things. One, which is the 16/4 time limit period. यानी कि as per GST Act, for any credit which you want to take, it should be filed up to the September of the next year. From this year onwards, this September is changed to November. But let us assume that September is there for the previous year. So for September onwards, अगर आपका return किसी ने भी file किया supplier ने, that credit you can take, because beyond that period, 16/4 time period does not allow. There is a limitation of period. Second thing which they do not allow in form of 2B, which is appearing in your 2B, but you are not totally allowed to take, is where the place of supply is other than Maharashtra. Suppose you are registered in Maharashtra or whichever state you are registered, but you are receiving C+S of any other state, then you are not allowed to claim that credit. However, my personal views are different in regard to that whether you can actually take credit or C+S or not, or either you should be actually allowed to claim credit of C element at least, if not C+S. Let us not go into the litigations and intricacies of that, but let us understand from the 2B figure, two things we are excluding: 16/4 time period and the place of supply other than C+S, not belonging to your state. Now, if these two items are removed, where we have to show these items? So these items should be showed in table 4D2, which comprises of only these two items. Now let us move forward from 4AB, the 2B figure which we have considered. We have removed two figures. Now let us see what next figure we have to remove. So whatever next ITC which balance you are having, out of this you need to bifurcate into two things. One which is temporary reversal, one which is permanent reversal. So the temporary reversals are the one which you can reclaim. In other terms, it is non-absolute ICT reversal. And the ones which cannot reclaim, those are known as absolute ICT reversal. So table 4B1 will comprise of those which you are not allowed to claim. So those are absolute ITC reversals. And table 4B2 shall be the non-absolute IT reversals. So what could be the examples of absolute IT reversals? It could be reversals under rule 38, 42, 43, or even our ineligible ITC. Correct? So the rule for 38, 42, 43, you might be aware, 42, 43 is regards to exempt supplies ratio, which was there as rule 6.3 in Sinvat credit rules. The same has been carried forward to GST. So these reversals which are prescribed under the law itself and which are not able to be reclaimed in future, those are known as absolute reversals, just a terminology used for ease of reference. These disclosures needs to be made in table 4B1, and the ones which are non-absolute, that is due to any other reason, you can reclaim it in future, like due to non-payment within 180 days, or due to non-receipt of supply of goods or services, or due to any inadvertent mistakes which you have made in your earlier periods. So those all ITC which you want to reverse, which you can reclaim further, can be in the form of 4B2 table. So to understand the ratio that what you have to claim in your 3B, a simple formula which we can understand is the table 4A minus 4B1 plus 4B2. In nutshell, 4A minus 4B1 minus 4B2. That means your total ITC as per 2B minus your absolute reversals minus your non-absolute reversals. So someone might may have a thought in your mind कि ineligible ITC जो बोल रहा हूँ मैं कि 4B1 में आना चाहिए, wasn't there a separate table in 3B which used to say show your ineligible ITC? So yes, the disclosure pattern has now changed. There we used to show in table 4D1 of 3B. Now we have to show it in a 4B1 of GSTR 3B. So that compliance procedure has changed from August itself. So you need to take care when you are filing your July GSTR 3B and make sure that the compliances which they are guided in the circular 170, that is their intention and that is how they have kept in mind while designing the form 3B. Similarly, this 42 reversals, which you have already removed from the total figure of 2B, needs to be disclosed here. So what do we understand in a nutshell? The ineligible ITC, which was not part of calculation of eligible ITC, is now part of calculation of eligible ITC in view of table 4A of 3B and various forms of 2B. So now when you're making your reconciliation with 2B, make sure the 2B figure starts with and ends in their book figure. Now, why this is required? Why government is expecting us to do this? So basically, it is to ensure current accountal and accurate settlement of funds between center and state. Also, since it is a destination-based taxation system, they are ensuring us to mark which state we have supplied the unregistered dealers or the composition dealers. That is why they are insisting that you mention whichever state you have made supply, even though if they are not registered. What if we do not follow such circulars or we do not simply ignore them? So number one, this circular are just clarificatory in nature. That does not mean that this law has been implemented right now. They are saying that this law was there right from day one. The only thing is they are trying to make clarifications and reminders by a reminder. So what if we don't follow? Maybe they can extend penalty of 25,000 under CGST Act, the general penalty clause which covers general section 125 covers. Maybe that can be imposed on us future. You never know. But now the question which may arise is, what about those cases? Because today we have come to know about these mistakes which you have done in the past. What about those cases which were done in the past already? So let us wait and watch if government gets aggressive and try to cover in these cases also. But I hope they'll give you a relief because a new law being implemented, they take some time to settle down. So whatever I've explained in the form of the formula, let us see with an example. These examples are discussed in the circular itself, but just for the ease of understanding and for convenience of the members, let us see what the example says. So basically, there is a manufacturer supplier of goods. Following are his ITC elements in his GSTR 2B. So these basically figures are all reflecting in his GSTR 2B, say Messrs ABC. So what are the elements? The normal elements which our table 3B considers. One is import of goods. Second is import of services. Third is inward supplies under RCM. Inward supplies from ISD and other inward supplies. Correct? This is your 2B which is reflecting. Now let us see the adjustments or the nature of transactions which this particular supplier has conducted. So first one is of the other inward supplies which was mentioned in row number 5. There was certain ITC element of section 17.5 amounting to 50,000. Second one is rule 42-43 reversal of ITC 75,500, IGST 52,000 and SGST and CGST 52,000. So the third note which they are saying is ABC has not received the supply. So as you may be aware, the conditions for availing credit also comprises of one of the conditions. Section 16 says that you should have received the goods or services to claim the credit. So if you have not received the goods and services, you have made the payment, your invoice is also received, it is appearing in 2B, then also you are not allowed to claim the credit as per the law. So they are trying to say another type of adjustments where you have in respect of invoice where inward supplies in a row have integrated tax but not received such supplies. Fourth type of adjustment is where consideration was not paid within 180 days. So as per law, you might be aware if you have handled the notices which are circulating from the department end, that if you have made payment to any supplier within 180 days, then you can claim the credit. But if you have availed the credit and not made payment to within 180 days, then you to reverse such ITC on the 181st day. So if they are trying to say that yes, they have got some credit and which is not paid to the not paid to the supplier within prescribed time limit. And the last one is section 16.4 limitation, that is filing of beyond September. So now let us see how the impact of the adjustments will happen in the table which we had discussed earlier. So this is how my normal 2B will reflect. As we have seen earlier, we have to leave it unaltered and do our net of figure by doing reversals in our 3B table. So the first adjustment which was there was regards to ineligible ITC. Now, since it's a permanent reversal, that is the law itself prescribes that neither today nor in future you can claim such credits. That is why I consider it as a permanent or absolute reversal, and I will reverse it in table 4B1. What are the reversal? Rule 42 or 43, which the law itself prescribes that given any scenario, you are not able to claim this credit. That is why this rule 42, 43 scenario, as well as section 17.5 scenario, this reversal table 4B1 reversals. So as we could see that note number 1 and note number 2, these both examples are covered in our table 4B1 of the 3B table. Coming forward, there was a case where supply was not received. Now this is not a permanent reversal. In future, when I receive the supply, I can claim the credit. So from time being, from 2B figure, I have to reduce such figure to arrive at my net books figure, net claimable ITC. And that is why such ITC also I need to exclude from my ITC reversal table. And that is why those temporary reversals are in table 4B2. So apart from where supply is not received, account of rule 37, that is also covered in the similar example. Now, what about those cases where section 17.5 was there? That is, we have already disclosed the figure in table 4B1. So such items are not to be reported here, but in table 4B1 itself. I hope that there is an amendment on the GST portal as well, but let us wait and watch if the things have changed on or not. And the last example, which was about period of limitation, as we have discussed, the 2 needs to be disclosed in table 4D2 itself. So I hope the example makes it much clearer to understand what I was trying to give with the help of this formula in this table, this net ITC available. With the example, we can understand that yes, how the disclosure needs to be made. So what is the learning from this entire exercise which we have learned in regards to disclosure in 3B? What was the current general practice? We used to claim as per ITC of books of accounts. Then we used to compare with 2B. That was our basic consideration of going with the flow with the return. Now what is changed as per circular? The base itself is changed. Instead of books of accounts, your GST or 2B is the change. So either be it permanent or temporary reversal, you need to net off those ITC and arrive at your books figure. So let us see how practical is this methodology which they have suggested, but it is going to be a big time and challenge for the professional colleagues. Let us wait and watch how it is. Moving forward, there is another circular number 171, which was issued on 6 July 22. So this is particularly in regards to penalty and demand provision in respect of fake invoices. As you have seen, media में आज दिन आया रहता है कि यहाँ fake invoices का issue है, पूरी entire chain is affected because of one supplier and all. So they have tried to bring clarity on such scenarios. These issues and clarifications are given in detail in the circular itself, but I'll just try to give a brief of what the circular says in the form of this summary diagram which I've made about it. So suppose now Mr. A is making and issuing tax invoice to Mr. B, but he's only issuing tax invoice without any underlying supply of goods and services. होता है ना fake invoicing के cases में, where they simply issue invoice, जैसे किसी के पास बहुत ज़्यादा credit पड़ा है, maybe someone from the inverted duty structure, उनके पास credit पड़ा है, they'll say that we'll pass on the credit to you without actually supplying goods and services. So it's a case of fake invoice. So what does the circular try to clarify? See, first of all, this supplier does not satisfy criteria of supply under section 7. Secondly, no tax liability arises because of this, since the no supply is there itself. Thus, no demand and penal action will require in such case. But that does not mean you are free from your fraud. You will be covered under penal action under section 122(1)(2). So basically, your penalty clause which will attract in such cases is not under 73 or 74, but under section 122. Another example, suppose now again A has issued this tax invoice without any supply of goods and services to B, taking it one step forward. B has further supplied it to C, but now he has made goods and supplies because he is not under a structure where he has excess credit. So he said that I'll make genuine supplies, but he has made tax invoice and with supply of goods and services. So basically what happens is he has made a proper supply, but what about the ITC which he has taken fraudulently? That ITC is availed also as well as utilized also for this purposes. So what will be the consequences on B or C or A? So basically demand and recovery of ITC, first of all from B because he has fraudulently availed, penal action under section 74 and under section 50 interest. So interest, when it is a case of availed and utilized, then you need to pay interest on such scenarios. Also, as per section 1753, if action taken under section 17(4), then no other penalty arises, including under section 122. So either clause will be covered for penalty, but he will not be left free from the fraud he has committed. Another example, just a scenario B2, you can say, if A has applied without supply of goods and services to B, but now B also has supplied without supply of goods and services to C. That means in the previous example, he had supplied with goods and services, the underlying goods and services were there. But now in this example, let us see what if he has also not supplied, just issued a tax invoice. So number one, B has fraudulently availed ITC. A से B को जो transfer हुआ है उसमें तो उसने ITC ले लिया, B से C को क्या C ने भी ITC ले लिया fraudulently. So as we see the first principle, there is no supply, so no tax liability arises. ITC which they have claimed is ineligible because there is no actual receipt of goods or services. No demand and recovery of ITC, no penal action under 1774, but penal action arises under which section? As we have seen earlier, section 122(1)(2) and 122(1)(7). So now if someone may ask me what are these 122(1)(2), 122(1)(7), I've just listed out the clauses from the relevant section so that whenever you want to self-study or so, you can have a look at what our cases are covered. So basically it covers issues which are without any issue of invoice or without any supply of goods, or you are fraudulently availing and utilizing credit, or you distribute credit in any manner. What is the fundamental principle from the circular which you understand? The fundamental principle is any person who has retained the benefit of transactions specified under subsection 1 of section 122, that is following subclauses which you have seen, any person who has retained such benefit or at whose instance such transactions are conducted. So even if you are abetting to the fraud, then also you are covered under the principle of the penalty clauses. So you will be liable for penal action under both the subsections which we have said. The section 122, just I'll read out what it says. Any person who retains the benefit of transaction covered in clauses 1, 2, 7 and 9 of subsection 1 and at whose instance such transaction is conducted shall be liable to penalty. What will be the penalty? Amount equivalent to tax evaded or ITC availed or passed on in that respect. So this is the circular 171. The snapshot of such circular is given for your self-study, which can be referred at a glance whenever you have to look. I'll circulate my PPT so that everyone is in advantage of whatever notes we have made during the designing of this PPT. So this snapshot will give you a clear picture of what I was trying to say in the entire slide from circular 171. Moving to the next circular, circular number 172. Am I going fast? If I'm going fast, you all can let me know to pace it down a little slow. Is it fine? The speed is fine?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. So circular number 172. This was also issued on 6 July when we were busy filing our income tax returns and all. So they have clarified on the aspect of various aspects. So one aspect is of deemed exports. Now, what is deemed exports? Deemed exports, many people have many interpretations about what is deemed exports, but there is no scope of, no stretch of imagination you can extend to understand what is the meaning of deemed exports, because deemed exports have been particularly notified by, I think, notification number 147 or so, which covers only 4 types of transactions which are deemed exports. That doesn't mean that anything under the cloud which is appearing to be like export needs to be a deemed export. So the 4 transactions, or you can say the ones which are included in the definition of deemed exports are, one is advance authorization license, one is EOU supplies, similar kind of 2 other transactions. So basically deemed exports has been defined under that and not left to the imagination. So what they have said that refunds are now, in case of deemed exports, the refund can be claimed either by the supplier or by the recipient, satisfying the conditions for the claiming refund. So they have just tried to mention about 4 points. One is refund claims on deemed exports are in the nature of refund tax charged on such supplies. So basically section 17 ITC restriction does not apply to such deemed exports refund. It only circular 147 which was issued earlier, which I was saying that which has defined also and said that notified what will be deemed exports. It provides for a procedural requirement for claiming ITC in ECL and then debiting with the refund application. So there are many refund applications where you need to debit your ITC element to claim the refund. So that ITC is converted into cash. Now, when you are claiming such ITC in ECL and debiting it, it not to be included in ITC for computation of your unutilized ITC on account of zero rated supply. So when you are trying to claim refund for your export or SEZ supply, such ITC need not be considered because it is just a procedural requirement to claim refund for deemed exports. The other ones which might be important for you is regarding to ITC. So now when you are giving perquisites to employees, when an employer is giving perquisites to his employees, so the perquisites which are provided by employer to AV, it will not be subjected to GST when the same is provided. Now this is important in terms of contractual agreement between the employer and employee. Number one, it should be in contractual agreement to provide the same. Now, what is blocked ITC in respect of that? Suppose if you are giving this ITC which is blocked section 17.5, as you might be aware or you have gone through the Amendment Act which came in 2019, it has changed the definition of ITC in many respects. So one respect was they had inserted proviso in section 17.5b. So the question which was there in the minds of the tax authority, taxpayers as well, that whether this proviso which is inserted in clause 3 of clause B of subsection 5, whether it is applied to the entire section 17.5 or it is applied into the only clause B. So it is applying only to a particular subsection or to the entire clause B. So what they have tried to clarify by this circular 172 is ITC in respect of such goods and services shall be available. Now, what was the proviso? I'll just read out the proviso. So basically, when you are providing any perquisites to employee, ITC in respect of any such goods or services shall be available where it is obligatory for an employer to provide the same to its employees under any law for the time being in force. So that doesn't mean any perquisite you provide may be blocked or so, but if you are providing it because it is obligatory under any law, say Factories Act or so, then you can claim that ITC. So that is removed from the section 17.5 ITC. What are the services which were there if it is mandatory for the employer to provide to employee? So services such as food, beverages, outdoor catering, health services, life insurance, health insurance shall be available if provision of such applies to the employees obligated on the employer under any law. So if employee is forced to give due to compliance of any other law, then you cannot be barred from section 17.5. Similarly, section 17.5b1, it also had a restriction in respect of leasing of motor vehicles, vessel, aircraft only. It does not bar availment of ITC in leasing of other cases. So the clause, the proviso which they have inserted, they have tried to say that we intend to cover for so and so clauses and to the entire section 17.5b. Another important aspect which is covered by circular 172 is the usage of the balance in ECL, or that is the electronic cash ledger or the electronic credit ledger. So आज दिन तक किस purposes के लिए आप लोग ने use किया? You can share me with the comment box कि what all things have been used. ECL balance किस चीज के लिए use किया? Meanwhile, I'll just try to give you a practical thing which was happening. अभी क्या हो रहा था? At many places, people used to get excess refund. Suppose excess refund आपको मिल गया, तो how does the refund procedure work? Suppose I have excess ITC balance, application करते वक्त मैंने उसको debit कर दिया. Now that excess ITC which was in the form of credit, when I get the refund, it gets converted into cash balance. तो मेरा credit जो unutilized पड़ा रहता था वो cash में convert हो गया. I am talking only about those cases where such ITC refund is allowed. There are only two: supplies to export under LUT and one is inverted duty structure. तो ये दोनों केसेस में सपोज बैलेंस बहुत पड़ा है, रिफंड अप्लाई किया, कैश में भी आ गया. अब प्रॉब्लम क्या होता था एट द टाइम ऑफ गिविंग रिफंड, ऑफिसर्स प्रॉपर ऑफिसर में नॉट हैव सो डीप नॉलेज अबाउट हाउ द फंक्शन वर्क्स, रिफंड इशू कर दिया फॉर XYZ रीजन। रिफंड इशू करने के बाद इफ देयर इज अ स्क्रूटिनी फ्रॉम डिपार्टमेंट इटसेल्फ और द रिफंड ऑडिट व्हिच वी से, वहां पे दे हैव रियलाइज्ड दैट एक्सेस रिफंड इज गिवन, या उनका भी पीयर रिव्यू जो होता होगा उसमें उनको पता चला कि एक्सेस रिफंड इज गिवन, सपोज कोई एलिमेंट का रिफंड नहीं मिलना था और मिल चुका है। तो नाउ व्हाइल गिविंग दिस रिफंड बैक टू द गवर्नमेंट दे यूज्ड टू से दैट यू पे वाया DRC 03। तो प्रॉब्लम क्या हो रही थी, पोर्टल में एक ग्लिच था, which many of them have explored and converted this credit into cash। पोर्टल में जब DRC फाइल करते फॉर गिविंग excess refund, if I select voluntary option also, I can give that credit which I refund in cash in the back in the form of credit। यानी मेरा क्रेडिट तो कैश में कन्वर्ट हो गया, बट व्हेन आई यूज्ड टू गिव बैक टू द गवर्नमेंट आई यूज्ड टू गिव बैक इन द फॉर्म ऑफ क्रेडिट। तो मेरा क्रेडिट जो अनयूटिलाइज पड़ रहा था, आई वुड हैव विश्ड कि मुझे एक्सेस रिफंड मिल जाए, वो कैश में कन्वर्ट हो जाए और मैं गवर्नमेंट को देते वक्त क्रेडिट में दे दूं। So now they have specified, they realized it later that there is a glitch on the portal which accepts such kind of DRC filings, and now they have restricted on the portal. But now they have also issued clarifications in regards to the circular, which says that what purposes ECL balances can be used, the credit and cash ledger. So they have said the cash ledger can be used towards output tax, self-assessed or payable, or as a consequence of any proceeding which is instituted against you. Similarly, electronic credit ledger balance, it can be used only for making payment towards output tax, which can be self-assessed in returns or so, or as a consequence of any assessment which is going on. But what about cases where it cannot be used? So as I said, first of all, RCM cannot be paid via cash. It can be paid, it cannot be paid via credit. It can be paid only via cash. Second is interest, penalty, late fee, that also you cannot pay via credit. The third one, which they have tried to clarify and which I was discussing, is about erroneous refund sanctioned in cash. So those cases also you cannot use, now you cannot use your electronic credit ledger balance. So एक question just था कि Honorable Orissa High Court has held that pre-deposit for an appeal can be made only in cash. ऐसा decision was given that pre-deposit for an appeal, whatever you want to pay, that can be made only in cash. But either this circular has failed to cover that aspect, or they have left to the imagination of our taxpayer. So let us see how the portal helps us in regards to the appeal mandatory pre-deposit which we are paying, whether the cash ledger or credit ledger will be helpful. Moving forward to the next circular, so we have covered circular number 171, 172, and now moving to circular number 173. Again, this was issued on 6th July, and basically it clarified on the aspect of inverted duty structure. So first of all, let us understand what is inverted duty structure. In simple terms, अगर आपकी input rate higher है, output rate कम है, that is inverted duty structure. What are the examples? Footwear industry या textile industry is the best example, where the rate of yarn purchasing is 12%. You process it and convert it into a fabric and sell, then it is 5% is the output rate. So basically 7% का एक lag हमेशा रह जाता है, and that is why the industries are suffering. So now that is why they get refund also, but only to a certain extent as per the formula prescribed in the law. So now they have tried to clarify कि suppose आपका input rate is 12% या output rate is 5%, but due to any concessional benefit which you are claiming, your input rate is getting lower than what it is supposed to be for the output rate, तो भी क्या वो inverted duty structure कहलाएगा? So let us see what they have issued the clarification. It was clarified that refund on account of inverted duty structure would not be admissible in cases where input and output are suppliers same. That we have understood that input should be higher than output. However, there may be cases where inputs and outputs are same, but output supplies are made under concessional notification. So that is why the output tax rate is less than the input tax rate. Then in such cases, as the rate of tax of output supply is less than the rate of tax of inputs at the same point of time due to supply under some concessional notification, ITC accumulated on account of the same is admissible. So that doesn't mean that if you have claimed benefit of any other notification giving concessional rate, you will not be allowed refund under inverted structure. However, you need to take care it should not be a nil rated or a fully exempted, or if specifically notified by government. So inverted duty structure में we have understood that concessional benefit लिया है तो भी आपको eligible है refund under inverted duty structure. Now in respect of refund which was sanctioned erroneously or so, as I explained the process कि आपका electronic credit ledger debit हो जाता है, cash में आ जाता है. Now, when they are rejecting a refund, say suppose I have applied refund say for 100 rupees, my refund sanction RFD 06 is of amount 80. तो 20 रुपीज एट द टाइम ऑफ मेकिंग एप्लीकेशन मेरा डेबिट हो गया था, करेक्ट. 100 रुपीज पूरा डेबिट हो गया था, 80 रुपीज मुझे कैश में आ गया. तो व्हाट अबाउट द रिमेनिंग 20 रुपीज, ना मुझे कैश में आया हुआ है ना क्रेडिट में आया हुआ है, एंड इट इज ऑलरेडी डेबिटेड फ्रॉम माय इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर. तो व्हाट विल हैपन फॉर दोस केसेस? So what was happening before the issue of the circular was officers used to suo motu issue it into the electronic credit ledger. यानी कि जो बैलेंस आपका डेबिट हुआ था वो आपको पूरा रिटर्न हो जाता था, either in the form of cash that is for the refund which is allowed, or either in the form of credit for the refund which is not sanctioned, which is rejected. So now for those cases where refund was not sanctioned and you used to appear in your electronic credit ledger on making pleads and requests to the processing officer, it was a case where you had to plead to the officer. So now they have come up with the circular stating the aspect of how it should run out. So they have introduced the form GST PMT 03A, which says that in case of erroneous refund along with interest penalty, that is whichever case you have ITC is debited for following kinds of refund, the procedure should be followed as such. That is taxpayer to deposit DRC 03 analysis refund including interest and penalty by using ECL balance and mentioning reason. Then he has to write return request in annexure A, that is format to jurisdictional processing officer to recredit such ITC balance which is rejected. And that form GST PMT 03 that it should be issued within 30 days, preferably within 30 days by the processing officer. So suppose आपका refund apply करते वक्त कोई credit electronic credit ledger से debit हो चुका है, ना आपको refund मिला है, refund order pass होने के बाद ना आपके credit ledger में आया, तो better go with the methodology of PMT 03A. For the purposes of benefit of our members, I have just attached the format of PMT 03A, the request letter which you can make in the form of annexure A. Moving forward to circular number 175, it is for filing refund of unutilized ITC on account of export of electricity. I'll just read it out, nothing major in it. Basically, electricity is classified as goods in GST. There is no requirement of filing any shipping bill or so in case of export as we make for other goods or goods. So basically it is not, it is classified as goods, but there is no requirement of filing shipping bill. However, Rule 89 provided for requirement of furnishing ITT details in shipping bill or bill of export in such refund of unutilized. So when you used to file application, there used to be a column specifying for the requirement of the same. So now they have added clause BA, that is to Rule 89 sub rule 2. A statement 3B has been inserted in RFD form itself. So they have tried to cover the scenarios which this industry was facing, and consequential changes have been made. Also, circular 176 now was issued. It is basically withdrawing the benefit which was already given in respect of this. I'll just read it out. Certain clarifications were given in relation to Rule 95A. So 95A inserted in CGST. Now this was for refund of taxes paid on inward supplies of indigenous goods by retail outlets established at departure area of international airport. So those which were located at the departure area of international airport beyond immigration counters, they used to make supplies to the retail outlets. So they used to be eligible for such refunds. But now circular number 106 used to grant that benefit. But now circular 176 has withdrawn such power. That is Rule 950 has been omitted right from 1st July 19 by its notification. Now withdrawal of this circular is also made ab initio withdrawal. So such cases have been specifically covered by this circular 176. Now circular 177 that was issued on 3rd August, just you can say 10 days before, which covered many aspects. 3 circulars were issued. One is 177, the other is 178 and 179. Each one is very much detailed, clarifying on various aspects of litigation which are running in the court of law. So they have tried to cover various issues, various industries in this regard. I'm just giving a snapshot of what was the issue and what is the clarification they have issued. So this was issued on 3rd August. First is related to the ice cream industry, you can say. So basically when you are supplying of ice cream by ice cream parlor, what was the issue? What was the clarification which was sought for by the taxpayers? So the clarification has been brought with regards to whether it is a restaurant service or whether it is a supply of ice cream, that is sale of ice cream service. So if you go into the restaurant service, 5% rate will apply. But if not a case of restaurant, then the 18% rate may apply. So the clarification has been brought similar to circular 164, which was already issued, that ice cream sold by a parlor or any other outlet not being in the nature of restaurant attacks GST at 18%. So this 18% was clarified by circular 164. What does 177 circular clarify? So the clarification has been respected. Now thing is settled that it is for the 18%, not for 5% category. So now the issue arose, the taxpayers felt a little aggrieved, saying that what about those scenarios where we have already paid with 5% and lost the ITC element? We have not paid 18% and not claimed all to ITC because 5% condition was without claiming ITC. So what about those scenarios? So they have requested that non-availment ITC and discharge of GST at 5% in cash before issuance of said circular. Since such ice cream prices have foregone significant ITC benefits since they have not claimed and paid it at the 5%. So now for the purposes of settling the law, they have issued a circular stating that in the past cases where GST on supply of ice cream has been paid at 5% without ITC shall be treated as GST fully paid to avoid unnecessary litigation. यानी कि पहले के केस में आपने 5% किया, that is also fully paid. Further, no refund shall be allowed if GST is already paid at 18%. यानी कि आपने 18% पे भी पे कर दिया है तो भी आपको कोई रिफंड नहीं मिलेगा, और आपने पे 5% पे विदाउट भी किया है तो भी हम लिटिगेशन इनिशिएट नहीं करेंगे, बट इट विल बी कंसिडर्ड एज फुल्ली पेड. Next is upon GST on application fee charged by an educational institution. So basically educational institution, any services which are provided to the students is exempted. So what about those cases where there is an eligibility certificate or migration certificate being issued? So exemption under GST was first of all available for services provided by an educational institution, either to student, faculty or staff, maybe by way of conducting entrance examination against consideration in form of entrance fee or so. So what was the clarification which was sought for? Whether the entrance or admission fee or the eligibility certificate fee in the process of entrance admission, yeah, migration certificate fee, whether in the form of students who are leaving the university or so, उन cases में क्या होगा? Whether it will be considered that it is an education services provided to the students. So yes, the clarification is now clear that all services supplied by an educational institution to its student are exempt. The amount of fee charged from prospective students, maybe the ones who are getting admitted or the ones who are leaving, also get covered under the said exemption notification. Another aspect which circular 177 itself covered is, it was requested for whether the term cotton fiber includes cotton in baled or gilt form, and thereby services for storage or warehousing of such goods are eligible for exemption. So it is clarified, yes, such service is also exempt under GST wide notification number 12/17. Then also they have made reference to sister judgment of Chandigarh in the case of RK Sons. So the form of the cotton fiber, whether it is baled or gilt, does not make a relevance, but it is exempted. So notification covers exemption for both the aspects. Now there is also an exemption with regards to goods which are being transited to Nepal and Bhutan. So the question which was there, that whether the supply of services associated with transit cargo, both to and from Nepal and Bhutan. So the two aspect was clear, when they are going to Nepal and Bhutan, it would be exempted. But the question was, when that empty vehicle is returning back from Nepal and Bhutan, whether such cases will also be covered under the exemption notification. So they have given the clarification stating that yes, the transit cargo going to Nepal and Bhutan and the return of empty containers from Nepal and Bhutan is exempt. What should be proved? That is the same vessel which was going to Nepal and Bhutan for the purposes of exporting is returning back. So if there are the detailed procedural changes which we have mentioned, that you can prove it that the same vehicle is returning, then you can claim the benefit of exemption which is given in notification number 12/2017. Another clarification which was sought for because of many representations and all, that is supply of sanitation and conservancy services to army and other central departments. So whether they are exempted under GST. So they have tried to say that be it any service or be it any organization, if it performs functions as listed in 11th and 12th schedule of Constitution, that is articles 243W and 243G, it would be taxable unless it is it will not be taxable unless it will be taxable. So if you are performing functions as stated in the article in the 11th and 12th schedule of the Constitution, which is the basic criteria of giving that exemption, then you are eligible for exemption, be it any organization, whether it is central or state department or not. So if you are following the condition, then you can claim the benefit of the exemption. Next aspect is about the rate of tax on sale of advertisement space in souvenirs. So GST has been requested whether applicable for GST rate applicable for selling of sales of advertisement souvenir books published. What they have clarified that print media means books which has been defined in Prints and Regulation Act. In nutshell, they are eligible for concessional rate, which is specified in notification 11/17. Moving to the next one about location charges or preferential location charges collected in addition to the lease premium for long-term lease of land. So the clarification has been requested whether the location charges of, suppose when you buy for any piece of land and you want a specific preferential location. So there is a consideration which is asked in excess to the amount which is already there for the sale of the land or lease premium, whichever say. So will that be also be considered as sale of land and excess preferential location charges which are collected in that nature be exempt from this? So the question which was asked, they have clarified that it has been clarified that the location or preferential location charges paid upfront in addition to lease premium for long-term lease of land constitute part of upfront amount charged for long-term lease of land and thus are eligible for the same tax treatment which we are given for the lease premium or the salami which you say. So yes, they are also covered under exemption as per notification 12/17. So this circular has tried to bring in various aspects which they are trying to clarify on the exemption notification. One more which they have covered is 2-3 more to go. Just one more we'll see from this circular is it was asked that what will the applicable rate of GST on transport of minerals from mining pit head to railway siding beneficiation plant by vehicles deployed with driver for a specific duration. So the clarification was asked whether it is exempt service under Enter 18 of notification 12/17. So they have clarified that such service is not a transportation of goods by road, but it is a rental service of transportation vehicles with operator. So there is a difference between the two. So now when it is covered under this, it is covered under HSN 9966, which is liable under GST. The next one is about when in regards to passenger transport service. So clarification was sought with regard to GST on private ferry tickets used as means of transport from one island to another in Andaman and Nicobar. So they have said that exempt under GST in terms of section 17D, entry 17D of notification 12/17, irrespective of whether the ferry is owned or operated by a private sector. So the ownership is not relevant. However, they have given a caveat that if ferries are predominantly used for tourism purposes, then it would remain taxable. Otherwise, it is to be considered as an exempt service. So the two things are ownership does not matter and the predominant use of tourism should not be the case. How would you define whether it is for tourism? So it should be a combination of sightseeing, food, beverages, music, award mission, etc. The next one is important. It may apply to many of the organizations. It says about requested to clarify whether RCM is applicable on services of transportation of passengers, that is heading 9964, or on renting of motor vehicles decide to carry passengers, 9966. So first let us understand what are the two things, 9966 and 9964. So 9964 is where the body corporate shall be liable to pay GST under RCM. Why? Because it is clarified that exemption covered under 9964 provided in entry 15B is not available to charter or hire of motor vehicle covered under 9966 is for a period of time where the renter defines. So person who has given it on rent defines how and where the vehicle will be operated, be it their schedules, routes, or any other operational considerations which they want to say. So when you have availed such kind of services, it will be a case of RCM, that is 9966. But however, if you have taken it for 9964 passenger of transport of passengers, it is not a case of transportation of passenger service, but it is a renting of motor vehicle that may be decided accordingly. So 9964, the body corporate shall not be liable to pay GST on the same under RCM as it is taken for a specific journey. So who decides the route, journey, and all the other terms regard to scheduled routes or other operational considerations can define which service would it qualify, and accordingly what will be the nature of benefit which will be given to this. Few more clarifications in circular 177. One is regarding the GST on payment of honorarium to guest anchors. So whether this will be covered under GST services. So it is neither a supply of service. It is clarified that supply of goods and services are taxable unless it is a Schedule 3 item. Services provided by guest anchors to in honorarium fees does attract GST because it's not a Schedule 3 item. So what about whether all the cases will be covered? No. So first you have to check the limit, whether it is in the prescribed limit of 20 lakhs or not. If it exceeds, then there is no specific exemption for the guest anchors and thus will be covered under the tax NAT of GST. The next one is regarding to toll fees. So what happens is in case of toll fees, if you have seen, be it our Daisya Checkneck or so, if you are in a line where there is FASTag, but you don't have FASTag on your vehicle, so you are charged a double amount. That is what the alert they have given. That is what the instruction they have been given to collect a double amount. So for toll fees, there is an exemption of GST. So the question was whether this additional fees, which is also collected in the form of non-compliance of that FASTag on their vehicles, whether it will be also covered under the exemption. So yes, what they have said is it also covered exemption for such cases. It is clarified that additional fee collected in the form of higher toll charges from vehicles not having FASTag is also essentially the same service which they are providing of toll charges, and that is why it shall be considered as an exempt service. The next is also regarding GST in respect to medical facilities. So the GST service in form of assisted reproductive technology, the ART or the IVF, in vitro fertilization facility. So whether this GST will be covered on such services. So they have said that it is clarified that services by IAF are also covered under the definition of healthcare services. So healthcare services will comprise of such services, and that is why they will get the benefit of exemption notification 74. GST in respect of next one we are moving. We are still continuing with the circular 177. As I said, it's a detailed one with the 11-page circular clarifying on various aspects. There are a lot of issues which are covered and try to settle down the litigation process which is ongoing in the courts. So the next is on sale of developed flats. So it has been requested to clarify in GST whether GST is applicable on sale of developed plot. Now suppose if you are given a land, along with that you are giving a land labeling service or drainage and pipeline setup service or so. So whether GST will be applicable, because ideally GST is not applicable for sale of land being a Schedule 3 item. It is neither a goods or service. So what will happen in those cases if you are giving a developed land? So even if you are giving a developed land, they have said that it is still a land, and that is why it will continue to cover under serial number 5 of Schedule 3, and thus it will not attract GST. But what about those services which are made to make it a developed land? So whether those services will be applicable for a non-GST item? So no, those are independent services which are provided for development of land, and thus they would attract GST, but the developed land in itself would not be a GST item. So that they have clarified on the sale of developed plots regarding. The next is of about tax on supply of service of construction, supply, installation and commissioning of dairy plant on a turnkey basis. So the clarification has been sought in respect of tax rate applicable on service of construction, supply, installation and commission of a dairy plant on a turnkey basis. So it is clarified that it constitutes the supply of works contract, as the dairy plant which comes into existence as a result of that contract is an immovable property. So the notification has given reference to 12% entry, which is in notification 11/2017. Whatever aspects we have discussed in circular 177, just for your self study or whenever you want to refer in short, I have just given a summary of all such aspects in the form of tabular representation for circular 177. So as we have seen, many aspects, including as good as 15 aspects, have been covered in circular 177, which has given a clear picture of what the law intends to charge and what it does not intends to charge. Exemptions have been given a clear, better meaning in respect of what was the integrations in court of law. So from 177, moving to the next circular, that is 178, which was also issued on 3rd August. Now it covers specifically in respect of one clause of GST, which was there well in service tax as well, about the leviability in cases of liquidated damages, compensation or penalty. The clause which was there in both service tax as well as GST is agreeing to the obligation to refrain from an act, or to tolerate an act or situation, or to do an act. So basically in service tax as well in GST, if you are agreeing to the obligation to refrain from an act, yeah, if you are tolerating an act or situation, yeah, आपने कोई act की है because of any reason, for all these three limbs it is considered as a deemed supply. Say supply, it's a item of supply. It is also very well covered in Schedule 2 of CGST Act in para 5e. So they have tried to clarify only on this aspect कि आपने obligation to refrain from an act या tolerate an act and situation या do an act में fall होते हैं कि नहीं. So the circular itself gives some examples कि what is the meaning of these clauses. That is the terms agreeing to the obligation to refrain from an act or to tolerate an act or to do an act. So let us see what is to refrain from an act. So examples could be non-compete agreements. So basically, when you are entering into an agreement where you are refraining from doing competition, then it can be considered as non-compete agreements. Similarly, a builder refraining from constructing more than a certain number of floors, even though he is permitted to do so by municipal authorities, then also it will be considered as refraining from an act. Another example, industrial unit refraining from manufacturing activity during certain hours. This will also be considered as refraining from an act. What are the examples of then tolerate an act? यानी refrain from an act यानी in हिंदी में simple भाषा में उसको बोले तो कुछ काम नहीं करना. Tolerate an act मतलब यानी कुछ सहना. So what is the limbs covered under tolerate an act? Examples could be shopkeeper allowing a hawker to operate from common payment in front of his shop, or maybe a residential welfare association tolerating use of loudspeakers in the early morning prayers by a school which is in the vicinity of that residential welfare association. Now what could be examples of obligation to do an act? So basically an industrial unit agrees to install equipment for zero emission or discharge on behest of residential welfare association of a neighbor residential complex against consideration paid by. So RWA is the residential welfare association is paying some consideration to the industrial unit where there should be zero emission. So basically in all the trims which we can say there is one condition being followed. Now the other three conditions which we need to look upon to qualify under this entry is one, there should be the consideration, that it shouldn't be a free will at free will or so. Second, there should be an agreement or contract, whether it could be expressed or implied, oral or written, that doesn't matter, but there should be some agreement or contract which asks you to do this activity specifically. At your own free will, if you're doing it, won't be covered under a Schedule 2 item. So it should not be presumed to exist just because there is flow of money from one party to another. So this circular has clarified on three aspects of we have tried to understand what the clause covers, what are the examples of it, but what does the liquidated damages or what is the impact on cancellation of coal blocks, such examples they have detailedly discussed in the circular. So for liquidated damages, let us understand the principles which they have given in the circular. So basically liquidated damages are rather payments for not tolerating the breach of contract. As we have studied, three limbs में not tolerating an act का कोई scenario नहीं है. It is only an tolerate an act or situation. या कुछ नहीं करना या कुछ करना. So since I have been giving liquidated damages, it is for not tolerating the breach of contract. The key is to consider whether impute payments constitute consideration for another independent contract. क्या ऐसा कोई expressly contract designed है which says that you have to pay the liquidated damages for tolerating such act or for situation or for refraining such act or simply situation? If your answer is yes, then you can say it's a supply because that is what the intention of the clause is. If not, then you can say that it is free from the definition of supply and thus no GST. Next is about compensation for cancellation of blocks. Another example which they have discussed in the circular, which says that if suppose compensation was given to them for cancellation not under a contract between allottees and government, but under the provision of statute and in pursuance of Supreme Court order. Thus, it would be incorrect to say that prior allottees of the coal blocks supplied a service to government and definitely they're not taxable. A common example of check dishonor or fine or penalty that supplier or bank imposes for dishonor of check. So that it is not a consideration for any service which they are given. Neither there is a predetermined agreement and thus it will not be a taxable element under the said definition of supply. What about penalty which are being imposed for violation of laws? So obviously there could not be an agreement between government and the violator that yes, you perform an activity which is not in the prescribed limits of law and you pay the penalty, we'll take it as a consideration or so. So although there is consideration being flow of money between one party to other party, but no agreement, prima facie agreement or privity of contract, thus it will not be a taxable item. The interesting one and the important one, which may be relevant for all people out here, is what about forfeiture of salary or payment of bond amount in the event of employee leaving employment before minimum agreement period? So suppose if there is a bond period involved in the employment terms of contract, so if he is leaving well before that agreed terms of contract, what will be the case? Whether it will be covered in this clause? You may say that yes, it is covered under the contract. There is a flow of consideration, but will it be covered? So let us see. The said amounts are covered by the employee not as a consideration for tolerating the act. As I said, the prima facie consideration should be the three limbs which we discussed. So tolerating, it is not primarily a consideration for tolerating that yes, you can leave before and such premature quitting of employment. But it, in other regards, it is a penalty for dissuading the non-serious employees. So the perspective of this consideration is different. Moreover, the employee also does not get anything in return from the employer, and thus it is not taxable. So works are just a second. Here. Now for what about compensation for not collecting toll charges? So there was a case where during lockdown, NHAI, that is project authorities, has given a suspension of toll collection charges during demonetization period, not lockdown, demonetization period. So whether this consideration which was given by NHAI to this toll plazas and all was forming a part of consideration or no. So it has been clarified that service that is provided by toll operators is that of access to road or bridge, toll charges being merely a consideration for that service. During that period, the service of access to road and bridge continued to be provided without collection of toll from actual users. Though consideration which was supposed to be collected from users, instead of that, it came from the project authority, that is the NHAI. So the fact remains that consideration has been removed, just that it has been received from some other person other than the actual user of the service. Thus, it will be considered as taxable. So even what do we learn from this? That consideration can flow from party B to C or party A to C. But if the consideration is involved in the transaction, then also it will be a case of consideration plus agreement and thus liable to GST. Now there are many cases, say suppose your housing society or so, where there is late payment charges or in your maintenance bill, if you see such cases, which are ancillary or naturally bundled with the principal supply, such as of electricity, water, telecommunication, gas, insurance, it would be assessed at the same rate as principal supply. So the two concepts which you might be aware of in GST are the mixed supply and the composite supply. What is composite supply? When there are two or more services, supplies, services or goods given together, when the other one is naturally bundled with the principal one, so the rate of tax will apply as applicable to the principal supply. But suppose if it's a case of, say, the best example could be where I've installed a TV and I've been given TV repairing services. So the TV repairing services will be applicable at the same rate where TV rate was applicable, because the repairing services could not, installation charges could not have been possible if I was not having a supply of TV. So that is the concept of composite supply. What about mixed supply? Suppose in Diwali, if you get a dry fruit ka box, which we say, which comprises of various 4 or 5 items or so, and each item has a different rate of tax. So what will be the rate of tax? So in case of mixed supply, where each are not related to or independent, which are not dependent on other, but are independent in actual, the rate of the highest product will be applicable to the entire product. So the mixed supply case, highest rate product, composite supply rate, principal supply. So when you are giving late payment for anything as regards to your principal supply, the rate of the principal supply should apply in regards to late payment or surcharge or fee, whichever is being levied. The next is regarding fixed capacity charges for power. So the power charges might comprise of two components, mixed minimum charge or the variable energy charge, as you say. Since it is related to the sale of electricity and electricity is exempt from GST, that is why the same can be considered as a exempt item. Now this regarding cancellation charges, which is a common scenario, that is a common business practice where, you know, if you have taken hotel accommodation or say tour and travel or transportation services, railway ticket bookings or so, where you have applied tickets say at the rate of 5%, but at the time of cancellation, what will be the applicable rate? So many people used to cover under this clause and say that yes, the 18% rate will be applicable because it is obligation to do an act, to refrain from an act, or to continue an act or situation. So if it is not covered in that case, then what will be the rate? And if it is covered in that case, what will be the case? So through this circular, they have clarified that cancellation rate shall be applicable at the same rate where it was a case of principal supply. That is the concept of composite supply. So if your railway tickets, which has initially attracted a rate of 5%, then in the time of cancellation, it shouldn't be a case where you have been charged 18% for such cases. The same rate should have been applied. The another one which is covered in the same circular is 178. That is forfeiture of earnest money by a seller in case of breach of an agreement to sell. So the seller who has received earnest money and there was a breach of an agreement by the buyer, in such cases he can forfeit his earnest money. Similarly, government can forfeit an amount which was given by successful bidder after winning if he fails to bid for after winning the bid for allotment of natural resources. After bidding, he is failed to perform his necessary actions. So as you can see in both the cases, there is forfeiture of amount, but due to a reason which is not prima facie performed by both the parties. So since it is a mere flow of money as the buyer or the successful bidder does not get anything in return for such forfeiture of earnest money, it is not a consideration for tolerating the breach of contract, but as a compensation for losses suffered and penalty for discouraging the non-serious buyers. Such payments being merely flow of money, not considered, are not considered as consideration. So the three limbs which were discussed in the very beginning are of very much relevance to understand that what are the cases which are to be covered in these three limbs. That is aggregative obligation to refrain from an act, कुछ नहीं करना, aggregation to obligation to tolerate an act or situation, कुछ सहना, agreeing to obligation to do an act, कुछ करना. अगर ये थ्री क्लॉजेस में आप कवर हो रहे हैं तभी आप इसमें सप्लाई की डेफिनेशन में कवर होंगे. So a lot of examples given in the circular, but what we have learnings from this, we have to keep in mind to apply for any other example which come across in our practice also. Circular 179 is regarding rate clarifications. As I said, three circulars had come, 177, 178, 179 on 3rd August itself. It is regarding rate clarifications. This can be self-studied. I will not go into detail because it is just applicable to certain products. Apart from circulars, as I mentioned in the beginning, that there could be rate notifications or non-rate notifications also, which can give amendments to the law. So notification 9, which was issued on 5th July 22. What does it say? So when there is first, let us understand that what is the meaning of distinct person. So what is distinct person? Distinct person is a concept in GST where you say that Ankit in Maharashtra is different from Ankit in Gujarat. What does that mean? That means I have a same PAN number. I am located in both the states, but in the eyes of GST law, I will be considered as a distinct person. That means I am not the same person despite of having the same PAN number, which is unlike the income tax law. So when I am supplying from my Maharashtra GST to my Gujarat GST, there will be a case of supply and GST will be levied accordingly. What happens in the case of branch transfer, which was not the case before. So what they have said is, if you are having excess cash balance in say Maharashtra GST and you won't require cash balance in your Gujarat GST, now as an individual or as a single PAN number, I am getting affected because my cash is lying excess over here, and where I require my working capital is getting affected. So this facility, they said that as per section 49, they will allow to transfer from your one GST to other GST of other state, which you call as a distinct person, whatever amount which is lying in your electronic cash ledger. Now this has been amended with effect from 5th July 22. I'm not sure about whether it is amended on the portal, but let us wait and watch if this facility gets available. It will be useful for many taxpayers whose working capital is getting affected due to lack of cash balances in their respective GSTs. The next one is important one, section 50, with regards to interest. So I think many would have already faced notices from departments stating that you have wrongly availed and utilized ITC or wrongly availed ITC itself. So basically सर्विस टैक्स के टाइम सिनवैट के रूल्स में पहले एक रूल जो हुआ करता था उसमें चेंजेस होने के बाद आई थिंक द लॉ वाज क्लैरिफाइड एट अ लेटर स्टेज, जहाँ पे उसी केसेस पे इंटरेस्ट लगता था जहाँ आपने रॉन्गली अवेल किया है as well as wrongly utilized किया है. The condition was wrongly availed and utilized. While copy pasting this through the GST Act, they had made the same mistake earlier, where they have forgotten to mention the word and that is why the cases where which were wrongly availed also were considered, cases where wrongly utilized were also considered. So what is the prima facie thing to understand from this? So section 50 was amended retrospectively from 1st July 17. This copy pasting mistake which they have made in the drafting of the law, that they have realized it and made it right from 1st July 17. So from now onwards, you have to pay interest only on those cases where your ITC is wrongly availed and utilized. So अगर suppose in terms of practicality, if you ask me, how will you identify कि आपका ITC avail हुआ, use हुआ है कि नहीं? The electronic credit ledger is such a huge basket. How do I identify? So simple formula simple methodology you can apply is see your electronic credit ledger. Suppose आपका wrongly availed and utilized का dispute चालू है से regarding ₹100. आपके इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर में अगर इन टोटलिटी 100 से ज्यादा बैलेंस चल रहा है राइट फ्रॉम डेट ऑफ अवेलिंग टिल द डेट ऑफ एक्चुअली रिवर्सल, अगर वो दिन से वो दिन तक कंटिन्यू बैलेंस चल रहा है, देन यू कैन से दैट यू हैव रॉन्गली अवेल्ड क्रेडिट बट नॉट यूटिलाइज्ड इट. बट सपोज आपका बैलेंस 100 से 0 हो गया, तो देन यू कैन से कि मैंने 100 रुपीज रॉन्गली यूटिलाइज किया. बट सपोज आपका 100 की जगह 60 रुपीज रह गया बैलेंस, तो व्हाट यू कैन से इज 40 रुपीज आई हैव रॉन्गली अवेल्ड एंड यूटिलाइज्ड, 60 आई हैव रॉन्गली अवेल्ड बट नॉट येट यूटिलाइज्ड. So your interest will be applicable only in 40 rupees, not on the entire 100 or 60 rupees. Is that clear? So this perspective you need to keep in mind when you are handling with the departmental notices, because this aspect they have taken very much advantage in the given 5 years and made recoveries to that extent. Even though it was very clear that the intention of law is not such, but till the law is drafted particularly, revenue would not give a decision in your favor. Another aspect about this which is not covered in my slide is about 18% or 20%, 24% rate applicable. So departmental audits and departmental notices will give you a rate to be charged at 24% for wrongly availed and utilized. However, if you see the Finance Bill 2022, that is the budget speech which was given, and Finance Act which was ultimately implemented, it had already covered a clause that 18% rate shall be applicable and not the 24% for such cases. So if you receive any notices or so, please litigate it out and better resolve it out. We have got cases where we have given relief to our clients by arguing this for this matter. And this was even before this notification was issued. However, this notification is a helping hand and an easy process to get your litigation process smoothly. Few more notifications. GSTR 9, same thing has been followed from 2021, 21-22. The limit is 2 crore. As you can see, the forms are already live on the portal. You can start filing your 9 and 9C. You have already seen income tax, there were no extensions or so. Don't hope any even in the GST or so, because this time the government is well prepared in advance. All the utilities are being made available well in advance, leaving us no scope to ask for any extension or so. Few more time limits. The limitation period which we say, which is prescribed under law, has been extended. So notification number 13, as this was issued on 5th July, it says that time limit for issuance of order under section 73(9). Now it is for such cases where tax has not been paid or short paid or ITC has been wrongly availed or utilized in respect of tax period from 17-18 has been extended till 39-20. So you can still expect tax or ITC not availed. So the time limit is extended from the department perspective. It has been observed that the time period from 1st March 20 to 28th Feb 22, this needs to be excluded. That means the lockdown period which were there for the purposes of calculation of limitation period. In a nutshell, you can say that 2 years, basically whatever is the limit 22 will be considered as period of 2 years. So जो भी limitation period आपका fall होता है as per the original drafting of the law, just add 2 years to it, then you can arrive at the extended period. Now what about cases these benefits are given to the department? What about taxpayers? So taxpayers are also given benefit where you want to claim refund. So refund के लिए भी such period will be excluded for the purposes of calculating limitation period. Now these changes which have been made, the taxpayers who have failed to file application for GST refund, they can, I have just drawn a chart stating what will be your due date in case for which particular month and what date it will be following. So I've just added the 2 years time period which is available and the date which needs to be filed before. So as of now, considering the current date of August, from September 18, if any date you have to file the same. This table you can refer for your reference if required any in future course of time. The next is notification number 14. This is regarding various aspects which covers as regard to suppose revocation of suspension. So what used to happen is there used to be registration. After filing returns, ideally my number should get activated. But the procedure which was being followed practicality was you need to plead to your officer that yes, after filing returns, they used to ask for your future workings as well, that what is your probable sales, and if the balance, deposit the balance in the electronic cash ledger. After verifying everything, they used to issue the log, regenerate the login and activate your login. So now what they have done is they have made an automated process where the taxpayer should have filed all the returns, and within 3 months, if it is getting if was getting given filed within 3 months, then if all previous returns are filed, then your number will be activated. That is what the procedural change they brought. So you need not go and office to your officer and plead him every time that you need to activate your cancelled GST login. But how far it will be implemented on the portal? Let us that's the value of duty credit scripts, which is to be considered in your aggregate value of exempt supplies. Exempt supplies for rule 42, 43. So what are rule 42, 43? उसमें से जितना भी आपका इनपुट क्रेडिट है उसमें से रिवर्सल होना चाहिए. क्या रेशियो में? इन द रेशियो ऑफ योर एग्जाम्प्ट सप्लाईज. इन सिंपल टर्म्स दिस इज व्हाट दिस इज. Rule 42 is about inputs and rule 43 is about capital goods. So rule 42 covers inputs and input services. Rule 43 covers about capital goods. This is exempt turnover. So the formula basically is exempt turnover divided by total turnover into net ITC. That is the ratio of your ITC which is in response to exempt supplies. So those ITC needs to be included in such exempt values. Also, as you are aware that now the e-invoicing is applicable for 10 crore limits. So they have said that for certain such as banks, FI, NBFC, SEZ developers, they need not generate e-invoice or IRN what you say, for turnover exceeding 20 crores from 17-18 onwards. But they are required to give such a specified declaration on their invoices that yes, we are aware of this, but we are not following this because of the specific exemption given to us. The next is about recredit on payment of for erroneous refund, which you have already discussed the PMT03 methodology. Also, for payment of tax, interest and penalty, 2 new modes of payments have been introduced, the UPI and IMPS method, which were not available earlier. Also, as we discussed that distinct person can transfer from one GST to other GST, that is also been updated in the notifications. Levy of interest on net cash liability, as I've explained how to calculate how much amount is actually utilized and how many amount is just wrongly availed but unutilized, that you can run from your electronic ledger and see. That has also been notified by Rule 88B, which has been inserted in the provisions of Section 50. This electricity one also we have discussed that the documentary evidence for claiming a refund on accumulated credit on export of electricity has been notified to ease the process of claiming refunds. Whenever the next one is about the refunds where you apply for export without payment of tax. So whenever you are applying for export without payment of tax, you get a refund in proportion to your export supplies made in regards to your total turnover. So in simple terms, the formula could be export turnover divided by total turnover into your net ITC. Correct. So now what will be the question? What will be the amount of export turnover? So they have clarified, issued a notification stating that export turnover will be the lower of the FOB value or the amount which is declared in your invoice or bill of supply. So not that whatever you have declared in your invoice will be considered as for the purposes of calculation of refund. Instead, you need to also compare with your FOB value, and whichever is less, that needs to be considered. This section 53, we have already discussed the procedure, how we have to verify for our clients whether interest is applicable or not and take actions accordingly. Moving further, ITC accrued due to inverted duty structure. There is a change in the formula, rather a simple twerk in the formula, which we'll discuss in detail as regard to what is the change and what was there earlier. I'll discuss in my next slide. Also, when you are supplying from duty-free shops, it shall be treated as export. This is Rule 95, which we have already discussed. Also, Rule 96, which is about refund of IGST paid on export of goods for risky exporters, has been amended from 1st July 17 itself to make refund claims for exports of goods contingent on matching of shipping bills with GST1 and to provide for withholding of refund where additional verification may be required. So whenever you're applying for refunds also, your shipping bill details should match with the actual shipping bill details. Now let us see what is the change in the accumulated ITC due to inverted duty structure refunds. So this has been drawn basically from the judgment of Union of India versus VKC Footsteps, wherein the old formula was basically what is the inverted duty structure as input rate higher than output rate. What is the duty structure minus output corresponding to your inverted duty structure. The formula runs in a way where inverted turnover divided by total turnover into net ITC. So I get the ITC element of my inverted duty structure. But on the output side, what they're saying is minus output tax payable on your inverted duty structure, basic formula, where input is derived by a particular ratio. So input minus output is my old formula which was there. Now, when this law was introduced, this formula was very well balanced, wherein input minus output was given a due consideration. However, when later there was amendment in the formula, they had said that the input which we are talking about, it will be only inputs and not input services. So that is what the restriction still lies in the formula, that it will be only inputs and not inputs for input services. So when I'm saying that my input is to be considered only in the ratio of inverted supply, then why my output is considered for inputs as well as input services? That was the lack in the formula. So they have made the changes in the formula accordingly. There is inputs where they are determined in the ratio of only goods and services. Of inverted supply of goods divided by total turnover into net ITC remains constant, minus tax payable on such inverted supply of goods and services into net ITC divided by ITC available of inputs and input services. So the balance which was lacking in the new formula has now been amended and changes have been brought respectively. So people have a thought in mind whether our refund amount will get enhanced due to this change in formula. To some extent, yes, but to the extent of entire service element, definitely not. You can check the figures which a simple example discusses, where in the earlier case, I was getting a refund of 4.67. I am now getting a refund of 9.17. The figures may vary and the ratio may vary, but that is how the benefit the new formula will give us. Because an inverted turnover in
Hello. Hello. You are. Yes.
Okay. So as you were speaking that the formula has been tweaked and changed, the rule which has introduced at the time of implementation of GST, Rule 89.5 was giving equivalent aspect to both the inputs goods as well as input services. Now, since there was a change in formula, whether this amendment could have been taken for the past period. So basically the introduction of law, they had given a balance. While amending the law, they made a small drafting error, or you can say unintentional error, which did not cause a balance in the formula. So I would say that it could be construed that the change in formula is nothing but a restoration of the balance which they were already intended to give at the time of implementation of law. So this change would have a retrospective effect. So any application which you have not filed till date pertaining to previous periods, ideally a department should give benefit for such cases also as per the new formula. But yesterday itself, when I checked this, whether the new formula has been made applicable on the portal itself, so that is not the case. If you apply on the date, the portal is still running with the old formula as well. So better wait and watch and then apply for the new formula. Also, in regards to this refund of inverted structure, certain items have been restricted by notification 9, which includes oil, coals, lignite, peat, etc. So such items, when you are considering your input element, exclude ITC pertaining to such elements and then calculate the formula. Now, what will be the impact of withdrawal of benefit of such specified commodities? Because of this exclusion of certain elements, coals have a coals and oils and lignite and peat. Whether this withdrawal will be applicable for applications which are already filed or yet to be filed or pending to be sanctioned. So let us see each scenario. Refund applications have already been filed and refund not yet received. The amendment would not apply because it is already applied and we are just waiting for the refund amount. Similarly, where refund applications have been filed and refund is in litigation, again the amendment would not apply since application has already been filed. Third scenario, where refund pertaining to ITC accumulated before issuance of notifications has not been filed yet. So yes, such restrictions may apply because yes, it will not apply and we will be eligible for higher refund because changes which are oppressive to taxpayers cannot be interpreted to have a retrospective effect. And the last scenario where you have not yet filed the application. So the amendment will be applicable and the refund would be not be eligible for such cases. These 3B changes we have already seen in detail, as in what were the changes in regards to disclosure of 3B. There is another change in regards to supply through aggregators or e-commerce operators that I will show you in the next slide. Table 4 also we have studied what are to be the new disclosure in the 3B. 9 and 9C other forms have been updated and made available on portal. Respective language has also been changed in the actual form. Now let us see what I was talking about the changes in regards to electronic supplies made to electronic commerce operators. Now suppose the two new tables are introduced in 3B, which should be available from 1st August 22 ideally. So let us see if it is available or not on the portal as of now. So 3.1.1 table, which says that a new table is introduced in 3B to report supplies made by electronic commerce operator. So electronic commerce operator, the portal which gives that service can make supplies and report it under 3.1.1. However, the electronic commerce operators are required to report supplies in 3.1 and not in 3.1a. So earlier where we used to show in 3.1a, we can change it to 3.1.1 clause bracket 1. What about those registered persons who are making supplies through ECO? So basically the electronic commerce operators will report in 3.1.11, but the registered person who is making such supplies through ECO can show it in 3.1.12 and not in 3.1a or 3.1c as was shown earlier. So in a nutshell, two tables are being introduced, 3.1.11 for ECOs and for suppliers who are making through such ECOs, 3.1.12. Now ECOs are required to pay their liabilities and declared in cash only. That is also very clear. So just a disclosure pattern, which is discussed in detail in this slides also. This is how the table will get amended. Probably we can see on the portal very soon, maybe from this month itself. Because it was expected that this will be made available from portal on 1st August, but I have not recently checked. Let us wait and watch if that has been updated. The same question which I had was there to Mr. X, and Mr. Y has given an answer in particular 3 simple pointers where ECO should have to report supplier in newly added table 3.1.2. Suppliers reported in 3.1.2 should not be included in 3.1a of 3B, and GST on the supplies made through ECO under 95 should be paid by ECO and not by supplier. The updated form of 3B may look in a similar fashion. This is just a draft, but let us see if this form along with the respective instructions have been changed accordingly on the portal or not. The next one is important for you all because GSTR 9, some changes have been made as regards to what was there in the last year. So there were many tables which have been exempted from disclosure in FY 2021, which are now been removed from FY 21-22. So what were those tables? One is credit and debit notes, which we were showing. Many people had an option to show it as a net off and not showing the figure separately. But now they have said that the optional condition of showing it as a net off and not showing it separately in table 4H and 4I are now being made mandatory. So when you prepare your 9 and 9C for this year, please ensure that right from the starting of the working, you have all those figures separately and not a net off figure. Similarly, for supplies made through amendments. So if basically what we used to do is we used to consider figure as per books since all those figures have already amended in returns. But now they want to see that what was the actual figure you have reported and what is the amended figure which you have shown. So if you get auto-populated GSTR 9, such figures will reflect those tables where amendment has been made. So you have to match your figure with normal supplies as well as amendments in totality with your books. So the option to show amendment figure has also been now withdrawn. Similarly, withdrawals have been made for showing exempted figure, nil rated figure, non-GST figure. There used to be an option whether you show the entire figure or not, but now non-GST supplies shall be reported separately. That is what they are asking for, separate report. What is the caution to be taken care while preparing 99C and non-GST supplies also? Because whatever you report in exempted table turnover, basically they will consider it for your rule 42-43 reversal. So read the raw properly. What is the exempted supply? What is the nil rated supply? What is the non-GST supply? And then make appropriate disclosures. Because if you put everything under exempted, then it may lead to your ITC reversal at the time of assessments. Also, HSN summary both for inward and outward supplies which were exempted in FY 2021, that were optional, but now it has been made mandatory. So now don't wait for the last moment when you are actually filing the form and then you realize that such all details are also required. Instead, get the data from the client right from the very beginning as regards to HSN. So we have seen circulars as well as notifications, and one notification. There are many rate changes also due to the GST Council meeting which was held, and many rate changes have been made in July itself. So we'll discuss few which are relating to which are relevant to all of us, and let us see the examples of such cases. Now, what has been changed in GST of renting of residential property? So earlier in GST of renting of residential property was exempt. Now what they have said is if you are providing such renting residential property to any registered person, that is any person holding GSTN, then in such cases it will be applicable under RCM basis. So what does that mean? First, there should be a residential property. It should be given to a person holding GSTN, and then RCM will be applicable. What about other cases? So we will see in various examples further that it is not applicable to a commercial property. It is not applicable to a person who is not registered under GST, and so on. So what the law says, from 18 July 22, that is from your July return. So when you file your 3B for July before 20th August, you need to take care that if such income is there or such RCM is this renting of residential properties there, who has to pay the tax, determine accordingly the RCM liability. So from 18 July 22, an unregistered person has given the residential house property rented out to a registered person, is liable to pay GST under RCM. This is how the entry reads. So RCM need to be paid by the tenant. Similarly, if a residential property owner is unregistered under GST law, he has given the residential property to a registered person for use of residential under the circumstances, tenant is liable to pay GST. So irrespective of the owner is or the renter is registered or unregistered, if it's a residential property given to a registered person, then RCM shall be applicable. Let us get us much clear with the help of some examples. So suppose ABC Limited takes renting of property for employee of their companies. Now since ABC Limited is registered, it will be liable to pay reverse charge under RCM. So renting, now the question may arise, what about the ITC of such RCM paid? So renting expenses treated as business expense, and ABC Limited has to pay GST at 18% under RCM. So it can pay RCM and claim ITC because it is being used for its business purpose. Let us see next example. Now suppose Mr. A, who is a composition dealer, and he uses it for his residential purpose, such renting of, he takes such residential property and using for his residential purpose. So the renting expenses are treated as business expenditure. He has to pay RCM under that consideration. But since a composition dealer is not eligible to claim credit, although he has to pay RCM, but he cannot avail the credit. So what I can understand is the purpose of the property is not specifically mentioned in the entry, but the person who is dealing with such property is relevant. So let us see next example. Mr. B, registered dealer, is taking residential property for his own and for his family for his residential purpose. So he is a registered person. So yes, he has to pay tax under RCM, but is it a business purpose? No. That is why he cannot claim ITC under he will be restricted for ITC as per section 17(5). Again, second last example we can see where XYZ company is registered. It is renting property for use of director of company. It is registered, it has to pay RCM. Second, it is used for business purpose. Yes, then it can claim ITC. The last example, Mr. X is unregistered. He is renting property to Mr. Y unregistered. Now, since Mr. Y, that is the tenant who is unregistered, is not liable to pay GST. So what we understand is it is only for residential property. If it's a case of commercial property, then forward charge will be applicable. To make a clear picture, let us see this chart. If it's a commercial property, landlord is registered, 18% forward charge. This has already been continued. But if it's a commercial property, landlord is registered, not registered under GST, then no GST. If commercial property, tenant is registered in GST, it doesn't matter because it is under forward charge. Let us move to the residential property scenarios. Landlord is registered in GST, doesn't matter because the case depends on if the tenant is registered or not. If the tenant is registered, no, then not GST. If yes, then 18% under reverse charge. Just yesterday or day before yesterday, that is on 12th August, there was a clarification issued by department as well, because there was confusion which was circulating on social media that for every given case of residential property, there needs to be paid RCM. So they have clarified that renting of residential unit taxable only when it is rented to business entity, that is registered person. No GST when it is rented to private person for personal use, and no GST when if proprietor or partner of firm rents residence for personal use. So the two things which we have to say is, one, it is a residential property. Second, the tenant is a registered person. In such cases, RCM will be applicable. And the condition of availing ITC should be seen as per section 17, whether he gets claim credit or not. Few more
Sir,
changes.
sir,
Yeah.
individual, yes. Jitendra
Yeah,
ji?
if a person is registered in one state and he is taking renting on the another state where he is not registered, then what is the situation?
So as we understood earlier, there is concept of distinct person under GST. So if you are saying ki Ankit is registered in Maharashtra, but Ankit is not registered in Gujarat. So first of all, if your PAN turnover is getting exceeding the said limit, you are supposed to take the registration. And
No,
even
everything is not under the turnover. But what happened that the billing system is from one side, and that they have offices in another states also.
So
And
to
they are
answer,
taking rental.
your queries in a simple one line, if you are having GST in that particular state, you are supposed to pay RCM. Registered person means a person holding a GST certificate. So if you are taking renting property in a state where your GST number is there, then you are supposed to pay RCM on that. That is how it runs.
If it is not in that state, there is no need.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can better check the conditions for taking registration. I'm ignoring on that aspect. But if you simply state your facts wherein you are not registered in a particular state, you have a residential property taken, then there is no need to pay RCM because it is only for a registered person. Just three limbs to understand whether it is applicable or not. First, it should be a residential property. Second, you should be registered in that particular state, or you should have a GST number, and there should be flow of consideration. So these three aspects you can consider to whether determine it's a case of RCM or not a case of RCM.
Just coming to the clarification.
Yeah.
If a person is claiming rent expenses 50% business and 50% personal, so whether ITC reverse RCM would be payable on this, or only on the part which we are showing as
No.
business? And
So two things for any given transaction, we have to analyze separately whether it's a case of a question for output or whether it's a case of input. Speaking about output, suppose you are a registered person, and if you are a person holding GST, that is your registered person and residential property taken on rent, RCM will be applicable. Now, if you say that 50% you are claiming as business expenditure, so if your business expenditure which you are portraying to the income tax is only 50%, then ideally claim your credit also only to the extent of 50%, which you may need to prove at the time of department scrutiny. So whatever is your business expenditure, run it in parallel to what we are showing as an income tax expense.
but 50 on balance 50% we should not pay RCM also, considering this.
You are supposed to pay RCM on the entire amount, irrespective of you're eligible to claim credit or not. Your liability to pay arises based on the fact that you are a registered person. Now, whether that property you are using it for commercial or personal use, or either residential use or commercial use, that is not being clearly stated in the language drafted. That is why it is left to the imagination that even if it is used for commercial use, being a residential property, then also the RCM would be applicable.
Because
So
here
the-
it is mentioned if it is used for personal use, no GST is applicable. The PIB fact check, third point.
The thing is, the things which they have clarified, it has created more confusion because even
Correct.
that it is for proprietor or partner of firm. So now suppose I am a proprietor who is registered in GST. That doesn't mean that I am not supposed to pay RCM on that. It is just for the press information bureau, which is for the common language. But we being chartered accountants can read out the intricacies of the drafting. It is not the language of the law. So better to read the actual notification and actual drafting which is given in that respect.
Because paper everywhere says the government has issued clarification, given clarification.
So
And
I don't think there is need of any clarification because referring to this chart, I think
this chart we have read, yeah.
everything would get covered under this. The only question which was there in my mind when this law was drafted, this language was drafted is what about a residential property which is being used as a commercial purpose? So earlier there was notification for residential property for residential use. This was the exemption notification which was existing prior to introducing this RCM. So there they had clearly mentioned that it should be a residential property for residential use, then it is exempt. But now they have given only residential property, but they have not mentioned the use of the property. That is why even if you are taking residential property for your commercial purpose, in my view, you should pay RCM on that and better claim the credit rather than having a gray area.
Okay. And there was one question by Rajesh Dalal sir also. A
I'll just
person have
few more slides. And
okay,
then
okay.
questions. Yeah. I'll just rush up to the rates because I'll not go into detail. To remove the inverted duty structure, they have removed the rate structure from getting it to the rationalization of rates. Our important point to note is even there in goods, there is some rationalization, even in services, there is some rationalization, but textile industry still remains to be under inverted structure. Footwear industry is somewhere brought into the rationalization mode. Few more rate changes which are there, which can be self-studied upon. Important one is say cut and polish diamonds from 0.25% to 1.5% it has been brought. Also RCM services have been changed from 18% to 5% in case of this. We'll study in detail for RCM as well. Some exemptions have been withdrawn. So this is also which we have already covered majorly the residential dwelling used to a registered person for residential purpose. The second is where hotel accommodations were there. So below 1,000, which was exempted earlier, has now been withdrawn. Similarly, for hospitals and so where the room rent is exceeding 5,000 per day to a person, for such cases also the exemption has been withdrawn. Important, which I think which you might be aware of, but which was there right from day one, is there was a case of exemption for GTA RCM payment basis also, where the single consideration, the single carriage cost is rupees 750, or in total it was exceeding rupees 1,500. So for those cases also there used to be an exemption, but now they have removed such exemption for those cases as well. Similarly, for storage and warehousing of agricultural goods, they have changed the language, which stating that earlier is to cover cereal, pulses, fruits, nuts, vegetable. Now it covers only cereals, pulses, fruits, and vegetables, and rest all other things have been excluded. Exemptions were given earlier to services by RBI, IRDAI, SEBI, FSI, GST, and to food business operators. Such has been also been removed. Similarly, services by way of fumigation in fairhouse to agricultural produce, slaughtering of animals, or the cord bird banking service, stem cell services, which we say, so that also been withdrawn from exemption. Some exemption in regard to tour and travel industry also introduced. Now let us study this one in detail, the RCM one. So GST now has the option to charge 5% on forward basis also. Earlier they had an option only to charge 12% under forward charge or 5% under RCM. So now they have brought that 12% also parallel to 5% under RCM. So GTA can take an option to charge either 5% or 12% by giving a declaration. This declaration needs to be given in a particular format and before the start of the year. That declaration format also I have attached in my PPT in the next subsequent slide. Next is renting of residential dwelling to any registered person. And the third one is changes entry pertaining to services provided by Department of Post. So they have brought under forward charge from reverse charge. That is the consequential change. These are the entries in detail. GTA provisions, what have been changed, just as let us understand by a flow chart. So now GTA has two options, either to pay under forward charge or not to pay under forward charge. If not under forward charge, as we are seeing, RCM is already applicable. What about if pays to forward charge? Earlier there was only one paid option or to pay 12%. Now option 5% with the condition that no ITC for goods and services will be available for using such supplying such services. So if you're opting this option of 5%, you need to give a declaration before 15th March of preceding financial year. However, for given current year 22-23, day after tomorrow is the last day, that is 16th August. Before that, you can give a declaration that you want to go under 5% option. So services by GTA will be exempt from tax if provided to unregistered person, unregistered casual taxable person, government department who are registered only to deduct TDS. GTA is required to provide a declaration. The declaration format I'll just give you in the next slide. And as I said, the 1500 and 750 exemption which was available before has now been withdrawn. All these changes have been made effective from 18 July 2022. This is the specimen of declaration which the GTA can give to declare their mode of selection of payment. Now the important aspect is how much time do I have? Hello?
No, sir, you can continue.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Because okay, I'll just brief about what is the concept of pre-packaged and labeled goods. Now, before introduction of this concept, the GST was applicable in case of a person having a registered brand name. What was the reason? Because it was applicable on specified goods which are in a unit container having a registered brand name. So person who has considered registered his brand name, they were considered as under the GST NAT. What has been now introduced? Now they have changed, and instead of such concept of branding, they have referred to the terminology of pre-packaged and labeled products. So in a nutshell, if we try to understand what is the change, the concept of branding is removed, but now the concept of pre-packaging and labeled has been introduced. So if you may ask me, what is the meaning of pre-packaged and labeled? So we have just brought a simplified meaning of what pre-packaged means. Pre-packaged means commodity should be in a packed condition. Packing is normally done in the absence of purchaser being available before the supplier. Packing may be sealed or at least otherwise closed in some manner. It has to be a predetermined quantity on such packages. That means something which is already pre-packed and already available made to the customer. It is not packed in front of him. Quantity is also predetermined. Such packages are known as pre-packaged. Then what is labeled? Labeled means any written, marked, stamped, printed or graphic matter affixed to or appearing upon any pre-packaged commodity. So this concept of pre-packaged and labeled should go hand in hand. If something is pre-packaged but not labeled, or if something is labeled and not pre-packaged, then there will be no question of GST. Apart from the condition of pre-packaged and labeled, it should be from a list which is specified in the schedule. So you cannot say that each and every food commodity is covered under the Act, but they have also referred to the Legal Metrology Act, which says that what is the meaning of pre-packaged and labeled good. So suppose let us understand with the help of LMR Act, the Legal Metrology Act, which says that items which are pre-packaged and labeled, but which are weighing up to 25 kg or less, then it is considered as a taxable item because it is not defined under the LMR Act. LMR Act says anything above 25 kg. So let us see the combination of pre-packaged, labeled as well as the LMR Act. Pre-packaged and labeled but less than 25 kg, taxable. Pre-packaged less than 25 kg but not labeled, exempt because there is no labeling. Again, pre-packaged and labeled having weight more than 25 kg, again exempt because all the conditions are being satisfied. Again, pre-packaged and labeled item for industrial consumer. This has also been exempted by the relevant provisions. Few more examples where wholesale package is there. It is having weight more than 25 kg, but does not contain any pre-packaged or labeled. So since all the three conditions are not being satisfied, it is exempt. Wholesale packaging having more than 25 kg, which contain any pre-packaged or labeled inside. So it is taxable. Items sold in loose quantity, again, it is not a pre-packaged item. So it's exempt. And items liable to bear declaration as per LMR Act, but not declared. So suppose if the LMR Act guides you to give a declaration or give you a instruction to have a pre-packaged or labeled form, but if you're not doing so just to get out of the GST Act, even if it is done in such manner, then it will be taxable because you are covered under the LMR Act. So if you ask me what all items are covered, there is annexure 1 which is attached in the given slides, and that may be referred to what all items are covered in that. Also, I have given a plenty of FAQs which may be self-studied. I'll not discuss in detail. which are pertaining to pre-packaged and labeled goods. Just to give a nutshell of what is happening, what we have discussed is the taxability will depend. It will be exempt in cases where it is sold in loose, that is packed in front of customer, or either is a retail pack weighing more than 25 kg or 25 liters, where it is a wholesale pack but retail pack exceeds 25 kg or 25 liter, and where it is given to industrial packs. When will it be taxable? When it is a retail pack but less than 25 kg, and when it is a wholesale pack but retail packs up to 25 kg. So just to summarize in the form of a picture, when you visit a shop, goods which are lying unbranded, unpackaged, or not pre-labeled will be not be subject to GST, but ones which are pre-packaged and pre-labeled are maybe liable to GST. Suppose the rice is sold loose, then no GST may be applicable. If it is packed but not labeled, then GST may not be applicable. But if it is packed as well as labeled, then GST at the rate 5% may be applicable. So many FAQs and things were running in the social media as well, in the WhatsApp groups as well. So just a clear picture I have given from what all the provisions. But what we need to understand from all these rate changes, rates may keep changing here and there every now and then. But the important provision to understand is as per the Act is section 14. So section 14 guides us as regards to what should be considered at the time of supply in regards to the rate changes which are made in the tariff. So this rule is, in simple terms, is 2 out of 3 rule. If majority wins, the time of supply will be that scenario. So let us see with an example of a table where 2 out of 3 rule follows. Now suppose this goods or services both have been supplied before change of rate of tax. So suppose before 18 July, goods and services have been supplied. The second condition is receipt of payment and invoice of issued, which will be the time of supply in given scenario. So let us see cases where goods and services have been supplied before change of rate of tax. So if receipt of payment is after change of rate of tax, invoice is issued after rate of change of tax, time of supply will be 2 out of 3. That is before, after. That is the date of receipt of payment. Is that clear? It's a simple way to understand this rule. So the new rate may apply. Similarly, when you go for goods supplied before, but the payment is received before, invoice is issued after, since 2 out of 3 before. That is the date of receipt of payment will be. Similarly, where the goods have been issued before, payment is after, and invoice is issued before the date of issue of invoice. So this particular month, there will be a lot of relevance for such changes because it is not changed from 1st July. 18 July rates have been changed. So while filing returns of this month, you need to be cautious of what will be the applicable rate because our clients may not be aware of this rule and what is the applicable rate. Again, when we say that goods are supplied before, what about cases when goods are supplied after the rate changes have been made? That is after 18 July. If receipt of payment is before, invoice is issued before, the answer will be the date of receipt of payment, which is before, old rate. Similarly, date of receipt is after, invoice is issued before, the time of supply should be receipt of payment. That is the 2 out of 3 rule. That is the new rate. Similarly, the receipt of payment is before, invoice is issued after, the time of supply should be date of issue of invoice, which is the new rate. So the section 14 is not to be learned only from today's perspective, but even now and then when the rate changes. The hotel accommodation rate changes, which I've already discussed, the 0 to 1000 slab, which was earlier exempt, from 18 July 22, it will be taxable. Rest earlier changes have also been tabulated for your ease of reference of what all has been made to hotel industry. Just on a lighter note, it may so happen that due to changes of hospital room rent having more than 5,000 per day per patient, except ICU, ICCU, CCU or NICU, there may be a case where the doctor asks to a patient, do you want a spinal or a general anesthesia? He may end up saying whichever has less GST. This might be thought in the minds of the patients also now. As we can see, there are a lot of rate changes. This is how the scenario of a common man right now is. From top to bottom, every item has been taxed and there has been rate change. So it may be a case where you also be you are being picturized in this common man, and you can relate very well to this. Few more just updates, not relating to 47 GST Council meeting, but since you all have attended the session on your holiday Sunday morning, I would like to give some extra benefit to the members who have attended this session. One is the Tran 1 changes which are available. One is, so basically Tran 1, those who could not file, as per the Supreme Court decision, they will reopen the window to claim transitional credits. All SSC, whether you have filed a writ or not, you can claim this benefit. they have also, Supreme Court has also instructed GSTN to make sure no technical glitches were made during this time. Thereafter, instructed officer to verify the claims and pass appropriate orders within 90 days. Also give opportunity of being heard to be assessee, and thereafter the credit may be reflected to ECL. Also, as regards to refund orders, a speaking order should be passed because many refund orders were being passed without being a reason of actually rejecting the refund. There will be post audit review also for such refund orders passed which are rejected. A mechanism has been introduced. This one is important as regards to your August returns which you are going to file, that the HSA code reporting has changed from 4-digit, we have moved to 6-digit, where cases is more than 5 crores. So earlier when there used to be, this was the change which was introduced from 1st April 21, that is up to 5 crore 4 digits, more than 5 crore 6 digits. Now this has been implemented in a phase-wise manner, where 4-digit was given that up to 2-digit and 6-digit was there up to 4-digit. So now they have asked to report 6-digit for HSN codes where turnover is more than 5 crores. This is still pending to be implemented, but as of now you can say as on given date, HSN codes to be reported minimum 2 digits for turnover up to 5 crores and up to 6 digits for turnover more than 5 crores. Also, e-invoicing, as you may be aware, that it is for exceeding 10 crores turnover. The limit was drastically reduced from 500 crores and all. But from effect from 1st October, it has been made mandatory for turnover exceeding 10 crores. So just a question to my mind, what if aggregate turnover exceeds 10 crores in FY 22-23 itself? इसी साल में आपका turnover बढ़ा है तो क्या होगा? Let us see with an example. Suppose case 1 where 17-18 your turnover had exceeded, e-invoice will be applicable because this turnover needs to be seen right from implementation of GST. So suppose 17-18 if you speak about from July 17 to March 18 will be the turnover limit. Talking about case 2, if your turnover exceeds in 21-22, from this year you are applicable for e-invoicing. But case 3 where it exceeds in 22-23 itself, which was the thought in my mind, so it will not be applicable because it is the condition of checking the previous year turnover. So if your turnover exceeds in this financial year, it will be applicable from next financial year. Also, if you have visited the invoicing portal, there is a link to verify if invoicing is applicable to you or not. Just check it before implementation of 1st October if they have activated on the portal. A snapshot of what all changes have been introduced in e-invoicing, starting from 500 crores from 1st October, 100 crores, 1st Jan 21, 50 crores, 1st April 21, 20 crores, April 22, 10 crores, October 20. You can see within a span of 2 years, everything is brought. Maybe in another 6 months, everyone will be covered under e-invoicing. Let us wait and watch because they get a lot of easiness in analyzing data from e-invoicing because e-invoicing has been real-time basis collection of data. Also, the single-click nil filing of GSTR1 facility has been introduced. Earlier, there was a few steps and some amount of time to be taken. Now, with the single click, you can file your nil GSTR1 without much efforts. Now, for GST payments, 2 new banks have been introduced. One is the Kotak Mahindra Bank and Karur Vyas Bank. Apart from that, the banks which are already existing is already listed in the slide in front of you. So, net banking method and over-the-counter methods, you can use these 2 banks also for e-payments. Also, there has been a draft committee, GST Council in this meeting, which was held on Chandigarh, proposed that there should be a draft form of GSTR3B where we can give our recommendations. So our ICAI through GST and Indirect Committee has also given us a link where we can verify and give our recommendations based on each table, what are difficulties you are facing. So they'll make a representation of concept paper on comprehensive changes in GSTR3B along with Form 3B and instruction. This is the link where you can find the draft GST3B. Now, as I said, the main intention was to update the members regarding the facilities which were updated or the law which was amended during our income tax return filing season. I have just covered new functionalities which is made available on GST portal, which was introduced only in July 22. So one is regarding to the registration. So basically, in registration, if you see, there was earlier it was used to allow only one trade name. So suppose I have 2 different businesses registered under the same GSTN, and if suppose I was having a brand name of say A under product this, and say brand name under trade name or brand name under product B as XYZ. So now when I used to supply my invoices, my GST in search, whatever used to happen, it used to show that ABC Limited with only one trade name. So my other set of customers who are not aware of my other business also, they were facing a issue to identify me as a trade name. So now they have given option that you can add up to 9 trade names in your particular GST, which was need of the hour because people have taken separate registrations to identify as a different trade name. So now it has been possible in one GST itself with multiple trade names being possible. Similarly, it has been observed that for advance ruling, when you are applying for advance ruling, mandatory mobile number they have been asked for new registration with a subsequent facility to edit profile also later. Also, there was notification which brought a new rate of 6%. So 3 plus 3% for certain goods, which has been implemented in GSTR1 on the GST portal. Also, for composition dealers, the data has been reflected from or GSTR4 data has been reflected in GSTR4 from GSTR1 in table 4A and 4B on the basis of the returns which they have filed during the year. For GST option also given for filing refund applications for refund arising in excess of payment of GSTR4 to composition dealers, where instead they used to apply under any other head, but now under refund of excess payment of tax will be available. Also, functionality to search advanced ruling orders based on various advanced fields like GST legal name, order date, order number, and so on can be made available, can be looked upon on the GST portal, which will help to find and study the advanced rulings. Now, even in case of challan in OTC mode, that is over the counter mode, the limit has been restricted to 10,000 rupees, which was not the case earlier. And this payment is not available on challan exceeding 10,000. Such kind of alerts are being introduced, and the limit for payment is restricted in the over the counter, not for other cases, but only over the counter cases. Also, when you are making a challan payment, generic message will be allowed in case of QRMP. I don't know how many of you are following, but in case of QRMP, if you are not making payment up to 25th of the next month, you are liable to interest. Many people choose to ignore about the liability which is being calculated. And if you choose to ignore, better option for a 35% rule, which auto calculates based on the previous quarter liability, and thereon there will be no interest liability. But if you choose the self-assessment method, make sure that you pay it before 25th. So now while generating challan also, an alert will be given to you as regards to the interest liability exposure. At last, I can say that if on today Sunday evening you go and visit your friend and you say that, yes, hey, have you heard any good joke lately? You can surely say that, yes, remembering so many GST amendments and keeping updating from time to time. So that's all from my end. Just want to conclude by saying there are many changes in the rate, but GST smile is still 0%. So please keep smiling. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ankit ji.
Yeah.
You explained so detailed, and I request you to share.
Yeah, definitely. I'll share it across.
And now I request CA Utkarsh Sharma, Deputy Convener AOSC, to give heartily vote of thanks.
Thank you, Jitendra ji. If there are no further queries from the members, then let us conclude this session. First of all, I'm grateful to Ankit Kabra for Okay, so there is one query.
Query is there.
Yes, so
One query earlier was also raised by
Yeah, what is the query?
postal ka tha na.
Utkarsh, can you just read it out for me, please?
A person giving numerous property as a hostel to a student, and he's taken all this on rent. What will be impact?
So basically, when it's a residential property, then only it is a case of RCM. Now, if you suppose if you are a registered person who has taken a commercial property on rent, then a forward charge should be applicable. So two conditions, as I said, one, it should be a residential property, and second, it should be a obtained by a registered person. So if your hostel is a commercial property or residential property, that you can decide accordingly and then take your decision. Now, someone has asked, I think,
Anjali Ghatka,
yeah, which one?
you ask.
Hello.
Yeah, Anjali.
सर गुड आफ्टरनून
Yeah,
सर
sir.
मुझे खाली एक ही कंफर्म करना है कि एक्सपोर्ट ऑफ रिफंड का जो आपने एक स्लाइड 56 आई गेस यू मेंशन कि दैट कंपैरिजन व्हिचएवर इज लोअर, तो जनरली तो एफओबी वैल्यू ही मेंशन करते थे हम लोग तो जीएसटीआर 1 में.
Correct. Even practically department used to follow this methodology जहाँ अपन bill invoice अगर invoice value भी mention करते थे तो they used to compare it with FOB value and FOB value being lower.
हाँ,
फॉर्मूला में वही कंसीडर करें.
ये झटका एक बार हो गया मेरा. फर्स्ट टाइम जब
हाँ.
17-18 का रिफंड था, दैट ऑफिसर है स्पेसिफिकली आस्क अस कि आप अमेंड करके लाइए R1 में, तभी मैं आपको रिफंड दूंगा. तो तब से
No. So
इनवॉइसेस.
no. So the thing is, you need not amend your R1 or so, but while for application of refund, for calculating of formula, you consider the FOB value.
अच्छा, ओके. नहीं, फिर तब से फिर हम लोग तो R1 में एफओबी वैल्यू ही डाल रहे हैं. मतलब वो मुझे फिर अमेंड प्रोविजन का लॉजिक नहीं समझा. मतलब क्या?
So it will be a reconciliation item in your 9 and 9C then.
अच्छा, ओके.
One more question from Vishal Panjwani.
Hmm.
Can you ask, sir, or I will be posted
So I can
on the
read
chat?
this. I think this one, right? Can you elaborate
Yeah.
on eligibility of ITC of other state? CNS regard person only in Maharashtra, the ITC of other state, Gujarat and Maharashtra, Gujarat CNS, such as GST of Gujarat does not appear in 2. How to take ITC? So now what department has been doing is, if it's a case of other state CNS, if you see table 8A of GSTR 9, which is the auto-populated ITC, जो GSTR 9 में आता है, वहां पे ये सब चीजों को एक्सक्लूड किया जा रहा है. So in the eyes of department, in the eyes of law, this credit is not allowed to you. So suppose if you take hotel stay in other state, even if it's your business purpose, hotel will not always give CNS bill only. It cannot give you a IGST bill because it is the rule of immovable property applied. So CNS of other state you are not able to claim because it is not pertaining to the state where you are registered. As I said, I have a different view that at least for the C element, which is a central tax, they should allow the credit. But in practicality, this has not been brought into picture as of now. I hope it is clear what you're trying to explain.
Yes, our 2B says ineligible.
Exactly, because even if you see in the previous years, right from 17-18, if you have analyzed the table 8A, which excludes certain item, मतलब 2A normally download करके देखो आपको figure 100 दिखेगा, table 8A में figure शायद 95 ही दिख रहा है. So this is due to these reasons which were there. The two conditions were one who is filing beyond September and one other state CNS. That we had analyzed at that point of time, but now they are brought into the circulars as well now. So you cannot claim ITC CNS of other state. And if you ask IGST from a hotel supplier or one who is place of supply falls in that particular state, then you may lose on that credit. There's no other option. Is that clear? Okay. Am I
Yes.
audible? Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
Any other queries on hand?
Presently, no.
not so far.
There's one more. I think no further queries.
No issues. No issues.
Okay. So yeah, we'll conclude this session. Ankit, thank you so much I'm grateful that you accepted my invitation in the shortest possible notice. With one just call, you were available to us. And thank you for explaining so vast amount of information in such a concise and effective manner of 2 hours. You have taken us through various circulars, notifications, amendments, etc., etc. For me, you are the circular. And for any further GST queries, your contact details are available to the members as well, and we will approach you for any further queries. And our association with you continues. Maybe during GST audit season, we will approach you for another session. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure to be associated with the study sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Arpit.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wishing you all a happy Independence Day in advance.